Hi guys, this is our first edition of Freaks and Geeks Friday. I've been talking about this show with Joe for ages, sometimes known as Merlin.
Sometimes.
We've talked about it on the Merlin channel several times.
Yeah, on the podcast and stuff.
And this is Freaks and Geeks. Now this was just released, well, I guess a couple of years ago now, but I didn't realize it was on Blu-ray until I went to loan you my DVDs.
Yeah.
This is not streaming anywhere anymore. It used to be on, I think, Hulu.
Okay.
Maybe it was Netflix, I forget. But
I think it was Netflix for a while.
Yeah, I think that and maybe the follow-up series Undeclared as well. Neither are available on streaming anymore, so. But of course I have the DVDs. I actually have two versions of the DVD because I have the one I loaned you, and then I have this big mamma jamma. It's called the Yearbook Edition. It has 2 discs of bonus features, but I've loaned that to someone, and I'm not sure who has it, so that's out. But so I gave you my other DVD, so I was like, well, let me look at how cheap. So it turns out they have the Blu-ray edition, and this is cool because, first of all, it has 2 discs of all the bonus features that were in the Yearbook Edition.
Ooh.
So I have all the same features, but for the first time ever, you can get it on widescreen.
That was never a thing.
So like the one you have is going to be on the original aspect ratio like this, which they have in the Blu-ray as well, but then they also have, if you want to see it in super cool widescreen, because that's how it was shot. It just wasn't shown that way.
Okay.
So they have, the Blu-ray has either option. You can either watch it in the original how it was shown aspect ratio or how it was shot.
Was that just to format it for TVs? Why did they do that?
Well, because it was on 99 and 2000, which was sort of like right around the time that some shows were making the jump to widescreen, whereas many were not. It was like the color boom of the 60s.
Okay.
Mid-60s, there were a lot of shows that were in color and a lot of shows still in black and white.
That's true.
And, Judd Apatow is the director and whatever of these, so he's got an eye for the cinema, so he said, let's shoot it in widescreen. I guess anticipating that there would be widescreen TVs by the plenty. But so today we're just going to talk about the very first episode. We're going to go episode by episode each week with these. The original episode was the only one not shot in widescreen, so I watched that on the original aspect ratio that we all get. But so here's the deal with this show.
Tell me.
I love it. It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
And for a long, long time, and I think I've talked about this on your show before, but for a long, long time, I would introduce this show to people, and their feelings about it really told me whether I wanted to be friends with this person.
Oh, no.
I feel like everybody has 1 or 2 of those where you're like, try this out, and if they don't like it, you're like, I don't know if I want to be friends with this person. They don't share my same sensibilities
at all. Yeah.
At all. So this was the one for me.
That's
Freaks and Geeks.
Your show to kind of test people.
Yeah. Because look, it's easy to do like a Seinfeld reference, or Friends or Cheers, or those shows that go on and on. Star Trek even.
Yeah.
But Freaks and Geeks is one that was not
that well
known when I was introducing it to people. And you had never seen it.
Yeah,
heard of it.
It's weird because it's definitely a show that I've heard about a lot, and you look up lists of greatest TV shows, it's usually there, but it doesn't really ever come up in conversation around me. Like until I met you, I don't think I ever heard anybody actually say, "Yeah, I'm a big fan." So I don't know if it's like a sort of like a Wire thing where it's word of mouth over time.
I think it really is, and it certainly isn't. Like a geek culture thing. So, a lot of the circles you run in are more comic book related, anime.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this would fall into that.
A lot of my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, honestly.
So, as we discovered last time, you're very, very well rounded with everything you like.
Generally, yeah.
But I feel like, with the circles you run in, I don't think Freaks and Geeks would be coming up.
Well, I guess for like the sort of coming of age high school dramedy, it's not something I usually gravitated to.
No.
So yeah, it makes sense.
So we're not really going to talk about a lot of the other things, I guess, that more of the historical elements of the show and all these bonus features, because I think first we want to just get the pilot stuff out there, see your original thoughts about all of this stuff, the characters and everything, because there's like a whole booklet with this, and I didn't really delve into the DVD features. I saw some of them when I got the yearbook edition like 10 years ago.
Okay.
But I think, we'll sort of trickle those in throughout the course of the
give me some
series
insight as we go along, because I think you know a bit more.
But for today, I think really I want to just get your initial reactions to the characters, the setting, the plot of the themes of the show, and all of that sort of thing. But I mean, I'll say very briefly. It ran from '99 to 2000 on NBC. It was on Saturday nights, which was not quite the death zone that it is now.
Saturday nights?
Yeah, Saturday nights nobody watches TV. It's all reruns. No network has original programming on Saturdays.
Friday night was the worst spot.
Friday is also bad. But in the late 90s, you still had TGIF was still sort of dwindling down.
Okay.
And so Saturday night was still,
iffy.
But it didn't work. They didn't run all the episodes. I think they ran 12 of the 18, and then ran 3 more over the summer after the huge fan base that was watching it petitioned.
I heard about that.
And then the rest of them did end up on Fox Family, so they all got aired eventually within about a year, maybe 14 months. But it was a critical darling. Critics loved it. And like you said, it appears atop all of the, especially like a one season
sort of thing
list of shows. It's like Freaks and Geeks, My So-Called Life are always like the 2, especially for that age group, the high school drama. But the general conceit is it takes place in 1980 at McKinley High School, and you've got the Freaks, which include most of the now famous Apatow people: Jason Segel, James Franco, Seth Rogen, and then you've got the Geeks, which people that we still see in movies. I mean, Martin Starr plays the one teacher in the Spider-Man movies, the recent series.
Oh, that's him. Okay.
Yeah, all grown up.
That's the mustache.
Yeah, they're a lot younger. Like the Freaks are definitely probably 18 or 19, playing 15. These kids are really freshmen in high school. Sam Levine has done some movies and stuff, and then John Francis Daley was on Bones for several seasons. And I think does a lot of producing and directing and stuff. But those are the Geeks. And then the sort of go-between is Linda Cardellini, who we also know from the Marvel Universe because she is Hawkeye's wife.
Oh, that's where I saw her.
Yeah, that's where you've seen her. She's
yeah.
also in the Christine Applegate show on Netflix, Dead to Me, that's very popular.
Okay.
So she is the sister of one of the Geeks, so she sort of straddles that line between both of the worlds. That's the general premise. But Joe, let's talk about your thoughts, your viewpoints on all the characters and all of this.
Well, the first reaction was I watched it and I completely hated it.
Now, I know that's not true. I know it's not true.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's see.
All right. Well, okay.
Okay.
Before you begin,
because okay.
So we're gonna do an episode a week here.
Yeah.
For each episode is gonna get their own video. Just right up front, off the bat, how do you feel after watching the pilot about spending 17 more weeks discussing this show? On a scale of 1 to 1 being oh dear God, I don't want to do any more episodes, and 10 being gung ho, can't wait to see what's next.
Probably a 7 or an 8.
I was thinking 8.
7 or 8, because and I'll let you know when I first started it, maybe the first 5 to 10 minutes of the episode, I wasn't really blown away. I'm okay. All right, and it's kind of connected to how I felt about it actually after I watched the whole thing. But as we were introduced to more characters and you saw little plot lines develop kind of within the episode, by the end of it, I actually was more interested. And I was I could definitely see where these characters go. I'd like to, but I think what really kind of tailored it for a little bit for me, which is sort of this backhanded kind of thing.
Okay.
As Freaks and Geeks feels to me a lot like it's really taking a lot of those tropes based on a lot of the movies in which the show takes place. So you think a lot about the classic high school coming of age of the 70s and 80s. Clearly this is kind of an homage to that time and those sorts of stories and films. But at the same time, this really seems like it set the standard for a lot of those shows. Like any show about high school that came after this, like probably owes a lot to this show. Like the vibe,
I completely agree.
the tone, just the characters, but also trying to be a little more nuanced about things. I just feel like this set the template.
Okay.
But you know how when you're exposed to something a lot, and then you go back and see the original one, and you're like, okay, this is kind of where it comes from. But you've seen it a lot before, so your first reaction is kind of, oh, this is just another one of those.
Yes.
So it was kind of like that, but I feel like this is an interesting in between.
And we did a lot of that on the old Film Fanatics show because we had an Oscar feature where we went back and watched Oscar movies from 80 years worth of Oscars, and a lot of times we would see something from the 40s or 50s, and to us it's like, oh man, that's like old hat, but then you have to think about, well, at the time, how cutting edge was this?
Probably pretty much.
Probably pretty much. And look, I'm not going to say this is the most original show out there. I think it owes a lot to the Wonder Years.
Okay. Which I've never really seen much of.
Oh,
to be honest.
great show. Of course, that takes place in the 60s, but was aired in the late 80s. So they're each about 20 years prior to where they're being aired.
Okay.
And then for the older demographic, and you'll see, I think, more of this as the episodes go on, American Graffiti. Which we saw for the Oscar A to Z.
That's classic.
On the old show. So
it's that vibe.
I think both of those things kind of converge with this show. But clearly, Apatow and Paul Feig are trying to tap into maybe some John Hughes esque moments.
But not that quirky exactly.
No, I think these are much more grounded shows.
And another
than the Hughes movies.
Impression I thought of too is this is kind of sort of like the Judd Apatow baby. Like this is the beginning of.
It really is.
Like we see, obviously I liked a lot of his movies and his humor, but one thing I thought was very interesting about watching this pilot was, maybe it's because he was working at one of these networks on TV, you saw him much more restrained, and so he can't be over the top. It's not overly gross, but there is much more focus on realistic, believable scenarios with teenagers.
That we do see a lot in his movies with not quite teenagers, but with older people.
With older people.
I feel like they're exaggerated because they're R-rated comedies, but...
And that's actually another thing I thought of too as I was watching it that I wanted to point out was Judd Apatow, I think, has that gift for having those exaggerative characters but still keeping them kind of believable, like it's on the line. But I think that this was even better because every character seemed like they could potentially be a caricature, but that person definitely could be there.
Right.
And I don't think I could say that about any of his films. They're all a little more bombastic.
I suppose that's probably true.
You know
I think This Is 40 is probably the closest we get to real world,
people,
completely down to earth characters.
Because compare this
especially
to
the Paul Rudd character.
40 version Octopus, a little bit
yes,
much.
Yes. It's definitely and even funny people, which I don't remember that well, but
that's more
but that's straight drama, really.
That's more drama, but
doesn't go into
this would
comedy.
Be closer to that. Though I thought this was much more dramatic than I was expecting. This was more like dramatic focus with little jokes peppered in.
Yes.
Which all right.
And networks were still trying to figure that out at the time. Like Ally McBeal was only on maybe 3 years. Networks, I think, were still trying to figure out how do we be cutting edge while still making something funny and dramatic and emotional and realistic. Ally McBeal obviously was very exaggerated.
It's a weird show.
It's a weird show. But then you had other things. I'm trying to think of late 90s, early 2000s dramas.
Dramas like that.
Because it was before Brothers and Sisters and before Parenthood and all that kind of stuff.
Well before that.
Well before that. But those, to me, are straight dramatic shows.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some humorous moments, but I feel like this really is a nice hybrid. And I first had noticed Judd Apatow back in the Ben Stiller days. With the Ben Stiller sketch show, which was about 5 years before this. He was the co-creator, I guess, and the director of that. But the thing with that is that really had Ben Stiller's stamp all over it.
Okay.
More so than Apatow. I think Apatow was kind of along for the ride, and it was Bob Odenkirk, Janine Garofalo, Andy Dick, and Ben Stiller. Kind of hard not to let those people do their thing.
Sure. A lot of big personalities.
A lot of big personalities. In fact, Ben Stiller, as I'm sure a favor, appears in one of the late season episodes to try and goose ratings a little bit.
I was looking at some of the guest stars. I saw Ben Stiller. Oh, like some people show up. Try not to spoil it too much, but I scrolled off like, oh, okay. But
he's in one of the later episodes. I think
it's a buddy.
I think it was the last one they aired. I think they figured, well, if anything's going to goose
Ben
ratings,
Stiller, he's in the show.
Yeah, it's Mr. I guess at the time, Mystery Men was probably the current movie.
Yeah,
you know, because it was right before Meet the Parents, I think. But
interesting time.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, so I feel like this show was kind of on that line of like networks are still trying to figure out how to do a show like this. And the Wonder Years, you really should watch at least a little bit of the Wonder Years at some point because it's a truly great show.
Huh.
The big difference is, you know, that was voiceover. Daniel Stern did the adult, you know, Kevin Arnold. Here, there's no voiceover.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest difference. But in tone, it's very, very similar.
Okay.
Realistic people, realistic situations.
It definitely feels like it's appropriate because it's right at that time where, you know, television really tried to up its game to be more cinematic. And I'm thinking, same year Sopranos, no coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, Sopranos right before 24 started.
Yeah, 24. And,
yeah, TV was definitely in a new kind of phase. I mean, Seinfeld had just gone off the air.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Malcolm Middle's going to come out soon.
Yeah, sort of ushering in a new era, a new time.
Yeah.
Family Guy had just started, you know,
yeah.
in terms of the more broad comedy type stuff that was on. But okay, let's talk very quickly about the basic plot of the episode.
Yeah,
at least before we go into the specifics.
It's pretty fresh. I was trying to wait, so I watched it just today. So
I watched it 3 times yesterday.
3 times
because there's 2 commentaries on each episode, so I watched the episode for probably about the 15th time.
So
and then the 2 commentaries.
You'll have to help me with navigating characters and actors for a while because I'm like I don't know most.
I pulled up the thing just in case.
Okay.
I'm lost, but I don't think I will.
So yeah, the plot of the episode, if you can help me, if I remember, is basically just an introduction of the couple days in the main character's life. What's her name?
In the show, Lindsay Weir.
Linz.
It's Lindsay and Sam Weir.
Lindsay and Sam Weir, just basically them, and I guess she's been kind of sad. Her grandmother died recently, so that's been bugging her.
Yeah.
And she's trying to fit in with the Freaks. That's James Franco and co. But there's that one girl that's like obviously jealous, but it's like, you know, so she's worried about fitting in there.
Yes. Kim Kelly, played by Busy Phillips. Who has had success since then. Well, first she was on Dawson's Creek before this.
Like I said, people look familiar, but I'm like...
But she did Cougar Town, and she had her own talk show on E! For a couple of years as well, recently. But
and the Freaks, outside of that, though, the Freaks didn't have much of a plot, really. It was more about her kind of navigating, like, because she's been having problems, so she's dropped out of, like, the math league, and her friends like, why are you doing that? And her parents are kind of on her about that, and...
I feel like the biggest plot development we get from the Freaks is Jason Segel's character Nick
with the drums
when she goes to his house and cuts class. That's kind of the biggest glimpse we get in this episode
of that, which surprised me. I thought there was going to be more of them because they're the actors I know a little more about. But yeah, she kind of slowly gets on a better direction because he's like, oh, I'm going to show you something to make you feel better. My drum set, because you know he loves all the great bands.
Right.
Oh, it's almost as big as Neil Peart's. You know. With Rush, so
classic reference.
Some great little references in here.
Yeah.
To a lot of things that I liked. That was one I enjoyed. It's like, oh man, so that was cool, and I liked probably the toughest part was she actually. There's the homecoming dance, which is the big topic. You know, and her brother's trying to ask this girl out. We'll talk about him, but she doesn't really want to go, but then she kind of gets forced into it because she's cutting class to her guidance counselor. One of my favorite characters already.
Yes, he's great, and he pops up in a lot of Apatow productions.
I've seen him before.
And I just looked him up yesterday because I was like, I feel like I've seen him recently too. Let me look. I'm surprised he's not part of the main cast.
He's not?
No, I guess not. He's in a lot of the episodes though.
He was pretty great. He was like trying to force her to basically serve drinks there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you know, I can bully you.
Well, he was in the new Ghostbusters. I'm trying to forget that. Hey, did you recognize the gym teacher?
No.
Biff Tannen from Back to the Future.
What?
Tom Wilson, yeah.
That's Biff?
That's Biff.
That
is Biff.
I did not recognize him.
Oh, okay. The guidance counselor, he was on the one season of Trial and Error on NBC, which was a very funny show.
Okay.
Not that you would know that.
I have no idea.
But yeah, he pops up a lot just in kind of random places.
He was cool.
Yeah.
but she basically helps out this mentally challenged boy who's everybody's kind of making fun of, and
do you recognize who he was played by?
I recognize him. Like, I know who is it?
It's Ben Foster, which I had to look up the name because I'm like, I recognize that name.
Foster. I've seen him before.
Hell or High Water.
Really?
He was other than Bridges, I guess, the main, and Chris Pine, I guess, too, was kind of a three-hander, but he was the brother or whatever in Hell or High Water.
Well, he was good.
So,
probably one of
he's only in 2 of these episodes.
Really?
Yeah, he's not a huge character.
Well, for this plot, he was kind of the point because she decides to take him to the dance to be nice, and there's that awkward moment where, she's like, oh, you're retarded, they're making fun of you, and actually upsets him, and then he breaks his arm.
Right.
She's more upset about that, trying to do something right, so, but,
because she feels bad.
She does feel bad, but she tries to follow through with that, and she kind of sort of feels better about herself by doing this and going to dance. That's kind of her little arc, though I want to say that it's probably not all completely resolved, her issues with her grandmother.
Not. Of course not.
That seems like the crux of the show. But I'm like, okay, but she's a little better now.
And she's got that friend who is more on the geek side that she's sort of trying to shake.
Yes. That's true.
So we see that a bit as well. But let's talk about the geeks then. What's their story?
I feel like had more of a plot in this one for the pilot, which I was actually perfectly fine with. I think it was... If I had to pick a favorite aspect of it, I think as far as enjoyability, it's definitely these characters.
This was my friend group. Like quoting old, at the time, current movies, but, they quote Caddyshack, my friends and I did Cheers lines, and Beetlejuice, and Groundhog Day, and, all of those things.
Bill Murray sucks.
Yeah, the Bill Murray sucks gets me, because I'm like, my friends and I were Bill Murray fans.
It's like, what?
The Jerk factors in, by the way, the Steve Martin movie. In one of the episodes too, they do a bunch of Steve Martin impressions, but
perfect.
But yeah, like this is me and my friends group.
Yeah.
And I was in high school only about 10 years after this show would have taken place, so it still spoke very much to me.
Gotcha.
We were a bit of an outcast, I would say.
Yeah, I was a bit nerdy in school, so this felt closer to the kids I probably would have hung out with.
Yeah.
I pretty much knew who easily one of my favorite characters was going to be from the moment he popped up. It's like, hello, Spock.
Okay, there we right. I was gonna say how much do you love that they did the Star Trek impression?
Like, this character is introduced just quoting, who are you? Like, and he has no idea he's William Shatner. I'm John Wayne. Oh, I get it.
He's clearly doing,
He's clearly doing a
Shatner.
But like, I guess his friend, who's also a great character, is just kind of very out of it. Yeah. Just very sheltered. Probably doesn't even know what Star Trek is, I guess, or just didn't pick up the nuances.
Just doesn't get the humor. Yeah.
But I like him. But yeah, those three were great, and the whole what's her brother's name? Sam. His whole thing, other than trying to get this girl to go to the dance with him, which is cute, but he doesn't know what he's doing, so it fails. But totally believable and adorable.
Yeah.
But she's a nice girl though. But the main thing is this bully. Classic bully who's just mean and insecure, is just going after him and threatening to kill him, and he's trying.
All his scenes are great because he's in the opening scene, and then Lindsay comes to the defense, and then he's like, "Oh, you got to have your your sister fight
for you."
And then
his name is
he
Weird.
Comes back.
He nicknamed him Weird. Like that's not
Weird,
the least clever thing. Hey, Weird. Like
their name's
not even Weirdo.
Yeah,
like
just weird.
It's just the laziest thing.
But then he shows up in the dodgeball scene, and then he gets super angry.
Oh, that was
because
great.
He gets one over on him in dodgeball, and then even the fight at the end is a great scene.
They all gang up on him. Yeah. It's like, can we take him?
They bring their other friend.
They talk to their kind of like outcast gothy friends. Yeah. Or whatever. They're like, okay, well, if you want to stand up to him, that's the only way to get rid of him. Yeah. I loved our one buddy was like, no, this is your fight. He's your enemy. I don't get involved. I study his past to avoid him. Walks right into him. Now I'm gonna get you. And he's like, no. Okay, tell me your theory so I can.
Right.
I was just that. I thought that was just great. And I like that they all kind of got together and stood up. Those three were great. Honestly, though, all the characters were great. I think.
How about the parents?
Okay. As far as the laughs go, I think other than those, the whole scenario with them, as far as laughs went. Seth Rogen got a couple from me.
Okay.
He is playing a character he doesn't typically play, more of a jerk.
Yeah.
But I like
Still
him.
a burnout.
Still a burnout, but very much so, but a little different.
Yeah.
And I think he had a couple ones. The one I remember the most was...
He kind of has a chip on his shoulder, which we don't see in his movies, really.
Yeah, he's angry. He's like very standoffish, like... what do you mean? Like, we're not going to go to the dance. But, like, he clearly got some issues. It's interesting. And he has very short lines. And the one that got me the most is when the blonde girl from, I guess, what is it?
Dawson's Creek.
Dawson's Creek and
Kim Kelly.
Kim Kelly. She's like, dumps over Lindsay's purse. It's like, that's why I don't carry a purse. I'm like, that was
so good. That's a great line.
That was a great line. Like, that's perfect. And also
the dad with the dead people.
Look, one of my old friends had underage sex once. You know what happened?
She died.
She died. Jimi Hendrix, he died. Like,
and then he starts
Janis Joplin.
Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin.
What are you talking about, Dad?
God. And then, do you love the line where she's like, are any of your friends still alive? And he's like, the smart one.
I had a friend who skipped class. You know what happened to him? He died.
They actually sort of disperse with that trope. It comes up once or twice more, but like
they kind of overused it a little in one
this episode. It's a lot.
That was a great little gag, though.
Yeah,
he died.
And he has a great comedic background. He was part of SCTV, which was the Canada SNL, basically with John Candy, Rick Moranis, Martin Short, Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy. So he's got a good pedigree with comedy. That guy. The mom I don't really recognize from anything but this show.
I feel like I've seen her in one
I'm sure she's done.
If you scroll in, I was like, I looked at the mom, and I'm like, she looks familiar. I feel like I've seen her in one other thing. Maybe like when she was younger.
She's been in Girls, which I hate.
Never saw Girls.
Stupid show. She's in Jacob's Ladder as a nurse. I know you love that movie.
Well, she was probably
that's probably a small role.
Very small, Simple Plan.
Men in Black, that's a small role too. In and Out, that's a funny movie.
2 Weeks Notice.
Spider-Man 3, Mrs. Stacy. I don't know.
It's like a 3-scene line.
Yeah, I mean none of these are really.
Minor.
Yeah, let's see about our TV.
Frasier.
Oh, Frasier Grinch. That's early. 95 would have been like season 3 Frasier. And obviously it was a Christmas episode. I can't. Here you go. Star Trek Voyager. She plays a ritual guide. But to you, that might be something. A couple of Law and Order appearances, an Oz appearance, but all these are just guest shots. I mean, she's not been.
She gets around.
Episode of Nurse Jackie. Yeah, I mean, this and Girls were her most 3 episodes of The Good Wife. My show. That's why I guess where I know her from. And Madam Secretary and all right, so all these are really just one. Well, Blacklist. You watched the Blacklist for a little bit. Although 2019 is probably pretty late.
Brockmire.
For you to watch it. All right. Well, anyway,
she's out there.
She's character. You've seen her in things, I'm sure. Becky and Baker, but Joe Flaherty's the dad. So all right. So that's all the characters.
All the characters. I will say it's hard to really. I liked pretty much all the characters.
Okay. Franco, we don't get a lot from this episode.
Yeah, he had a couple of lines. Like he seems almost like he's kind of bringing her into the group, but we don't really get to see a lot of that. Like I was surprised we didn't get as much of him because he's like the most recognizable face
nowadays. Yeah, now.
So that surprised me.
I don't think really anybody was at the time. I don't think any of them had done much, popular TV or movies before.
This is kind of it.
But I will say, in the original script, they actually didn't really have Kim Kelly in it, I think at all. She was supposed to be a part of the second episode, but they decided, you know what, she's such a strong, sort of aggressive character towards Lindsay and Sam a little bit. Let's stick her in the pilot. So they gave her a couple of scenes in the pilot.
She's probably one of the more interesting characters already because... I mean, I like the fact that by the end of the episode, she kind of turns her opinion around a little bit. And by seeing how Lynn stood up for the other kid, that was kind of cool. I will say when she kind of sort of intimidates Sam by you want to, hey, my girlfriend, you want to kiss me? And he's like, I don't know. Just
Poor kid.
That might have been the most uncomfortable scene because I could totally believe the kid.
Right, I was going to say.
I have got a lot of mixed feelings about this
he's staring at the girl that he likes, and she basically
looks like a friend of mine. I think I'm a friend of yours.
I look like a friend of yours.
No, it's we could just
Poor
be friends.
Kid.
But these scenarios are so.
He's so sweet. He's just well, I think of you as a friend. Whatever. She's not his friend.
No, she's kidding. Yeah, but he's trying to get out of it. But like I said, I think that's my favorite thing about the show is that the characters and their conversations just seem so believable, and I could see those scenarios, all those conversations happening.
Yeah.
In a high school, it felt very, very believable.
How about the music?
The music was good. I think there was a lot
great.
of it like very good. A lot of it time appropriate, right? 70s?
All of it very time appropriate. Even the theme song, which is Bad Reputation by Joan Jett, that was 1980, which is when this takes place. And this, by the way, you can thank Judd Apatow for
Thank you.
A lot of the DVDs that came after this having the original music, because he fought very, very hard for the rights to the music. And I think all but maybe one song was able to be on the DVD content.
Wow.
Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Styx, Joan Jett, like we said.
Opening it up,
What's it called? Neil Peart, Rush.
The Rush song.
Rush, factors in a little bit later.
What's the song at the end?
Come Sail Away,
Sail Away
by Styx, which is the dance.
Yeah, at the end.
But so Shout Factory, God bless them, they worked with Judd to make sure
That's cool.
that they could have all the original music. So after that DVD came out, a lot of people, especially shows like on the CW that were very like current music heavy, put in their contracts, this song is not just licensed for this episode, but for all subsequent, packages of this episode and stuff.
Until we started like hanging out and you started telling me about just kind of your knowledge of television, I didn't know that converting it to DVD, that's a big issue that comes up.
Yeah. A lot, actually.
I guess
it's why the Wonder Years. It's because it had a lot of '60s music in it, from like Beach Boys and Joe Cocker and big names, and for about 15 years after DVDs existed, they could not get that out, and then finally they did.
Did HBO just have more money back in the day? Because obviously Sopranos was loaded with songs that I never heard that being. That's weird.
Probably. That wouldn't surprise me.
Bigger than NBC or whatever? Like, that seems weird
Maybe
to me.
not bigger than, but
I don't get
they may have just done different contracts, and I don't know.
That's just a weird problem. I don't know. It's interesting. It's
an
interesting issue.
I just remember this was a huge deal for Judd to be able to get all of the music. Yeah, because a lot of shows will have the original broadcast rights, and then they'll have in the contract syndication rights. But even that runs out after all. Like WKRP in Cincinnati, which was a big show in the 70s that took place at a radio station, had a lot of original songs in it. And after like 20 years or something, they then had to replace the music cues. So if you saw it in the late 90s, like on Nick at Night or TV Land or whatever, it was just completely foreign.
That's
just
weird.
Sort of like, stock music.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Very, very weird. So, all right, so
music, characters.
What else can we talk about?
What else do you think would be good to cover? Because I have a few little things I could mention.
I mean, like I said, I think we'll sort of drip and drab in the context and history of the show and that sort of thing in the different episodes.
Sure.
This is more of a
how do you feel?
How do you feel about the show on the whole and stuff? So what else do you want to talk about?
Well, let's see. I like pretty much all the characters. I feel like as a pilot is trying to do, it's trying to juggle a lot of characters at once, which it mostly does well.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think some of the freaks don't really come off as full characters yet. Really? Do they later?
Yes, they do as Lindsay sort of gets more into that world.
Okay.
But I think it's pretty safe to say that this pilot is more about the geeks than anything.
Which is cool.
I mean, I would say they have the two main stories.
Which is her as the main character, and Sam. So it follows basically the two of them, but more him and his friends and just her.
Right. It's a lot of him and his friends, him and this girl that he likes. It's a little bit with her because you've got the mentally challenged kid that she goes to the dance with.
Yeah.
And then she's got sort of her entree into the freak lifestyle, but she's far from being accepted there yet. So yeah, in subsequent episodes, the more she sort of straddles that line, we meet them, or sort of re-meet them, I guess, and learn a lot more about them. Like, I would say the main one is probably Nick, which is Jason Segel. Of all of them, I feel like we end up learning the most about his background, his life, As opposed to Franco, Busy Phillips, and Seth Rogen. But the geeks, the collective, and Lindsay are really the core of the show. So it's really wherever Lindsay's at.
Okay.
Is
interesting.
A lot of the plots. But that girl Sam likes, she sticks around.
Okay.
So we see her, throughout.
To see if he'll have any more luck down the line with that.
And then his buddies are his buddies.
And they've got their issues, I'm sure.
They've got their issues, and we learned some about them, but it's more about
the siblings.
Well, it's more about the siblings and their friendships individually. So it's less about these kids'
all the kids
home lives, right?
As their relationships with each other,
right?
Through that one family.
And you remember that era. I mean, at least I were always hanging out with your friends. You were just playing games, doing whatever. For me it was mostly board games, maybe little video games, but we're playing music together or whatever. We were just always with our friends. And I feel like that's really the crux of this show, as opposed to all the families.
Okay.
So we see their parents a lot, and we learn about some of the other kids' parents, but we don't really dive in
too much. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, all right. So the geek-centered focus right now is fine. I was fine with it.
Yeah.
I just thought that if it was going to be more balanced, I thought it was a little off in it. So it's going to be more of an introduction.
Yeah, it'll definitely get more balanced. And what's interesting is, did you notice in the theme song, where they're all getting their class photos, it's one from one group followed by one from the other.
Okay.
So, you
Gotcha.
have Seth Rogen sitting there, and then he gets up, and then Martin Starr comes down, or whatever the order is. But it becomes a very, very well balanced show the more she integrates herself into that lifestyle.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so I guess as far as balance goes, maybe it was a little off for the pilot, but I was okay with the geeks, for sure.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think the plot overall.
Good guidance counseling.
Good guidance counseling. Great, a lot of funny moments. Some good conversation.
Good Biff Tannen.
Good Biff. Oh, that one. All right, the dodgeball scene was good, but that one kid, that one bully, the big guy, he looks like he's about 50 years old.
What's funny is
was that a joke?
He was in Varsity Blues just the year before that.
The heck?
And he looked old in that too.
I was like, is this supposed to be a kid? That stuck out to me.
Okay.
That actually, that had my least favorite part of the episode.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
The dodgeball
Was it when
scene,
he got pelted with 1,000,000 dodgeballs?
one of those pelts, there's a weird, fast zoom in. It looked terrible.
Okay.
Took me completely out. It was a very 90s thing. Everything else but the show doesn't seem dated, but that was a bit. But not all the dodgeball. That was that one.
Just that part.
one edit where I was like, why? Really was a weird. Was that a very 90s thing? But I didn't think it fit the rest of the show.
Here's
so I was
here's what I feel about
it was experimental.
that.
It was just a weird.
Here's what I feel about the dodgeball scene.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
This actually is my least favorite scene in the
Okay.
in the episode.
I mean, the best line comes from, I guess, Smart Stars. The dodgeball is kind of a dumb sport, isn't it? You get the sense of.
My biggest issue with it is
it's
the only part of the episode that is so broad.
In comedy?
Yeah, him, he gets that great catch, the bully's out, and then all the other guys get the dodgeballs, and like you said with the slow motion bit, but realistically, when has there been a dodgeball game when they've had 10 dodgeballs on the one side? That's the one part to me that's all right, this is a little bit more for the over-the-top aspect. Because even the dad saying about all the dead people he knows, that's believable. That is
to get you to scare your kid.
Right, to scare your kid, which was, hot in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I feel like the dodgeball scene is just the one place where
a little
loses.
It took me out of the episode.
Yes, it loses a little bit. Now, they obviously need to have it to advance the bully storyline.
Yes.
So I don't wish for them to take it out completely. I just would have liked to see
Should have been just less pelting of them. Because I didn't get was I guess this was an opportunity for all the bigger kids to pelt the other kids, but it wasn't all just scrawny people. And then it just all these people ganged up on him, and the way it was shot was they had an agenda. And I'm like, they don't all hate this
But
kid, do
no,
they?
but what I liked about the scene as a whole is that dynamic that at least I always felt in gym class. I was not athletic.
Same.
I was okay at volleyball. That was about it. Any other unit we did, I was like screwed.
I never had hand-eye coordination, so I was screwed.
So you can't even do that.
Just yeah.
So the idea of dodgeball is horrible. I always hated it, and I felt very, sort of attacked, I guess, by the older kids, and it has nothing to do with them.
Athleticism.
It has nothing to do with them liking the younger kids or wanting to pick on them. It just has to do with them wanting to show their prowess and wanting to show that I'm tough and I am macho and I've got muscles. And so that's how it always was. And my favorite part of the scene, which is also believable, is when the one kid gets a completely illegal shot in. So Coach Biff has to kick him out of the game. But on his way to the bleachers, he just gives him like a chuckle and he's like, good, you did it. Like, ha ha, I'm really proud of you, but I still have to kick you out because it was an illegal move. But good job, for beating on the kid.
Classic Biff, the coach is also kind of, bad. He's like, he calls the kid names too. Weird.
Yes.
Quite weird. So,
And we see that a lot in the Goldbergs, which is currently running the coach there, is very similar, and that takes place in the 80s too. I mean, that was certainly my era for gym class.
Yeah,
and,
thankfully I didn't have two teachers who were like that. So
yeah, some of mine were great, and a couple of them were like that.
Nuts.
So, but to me, this is a perfect pilot, other than that scene.
Okay.
So that's where I fall. Now it maybe gets a little saccharine at the end.
For a show like this, I didn't think it was too cheesy or too preachy.
I think
not really.
That last scene, I think,
I like the last scene.
Tells you what this show is going to be. It tells you that okay, there's going to be some emotional notes here. It's not just going to be all silly dodgeball and silly my friends are all dead from the dad bits. That the show's going to have a heart.
Yeah.
That and even the guidance counselor who is in that scene is and in one of the deleted scenes, which I am kind of glad they cut out because it's maybe a little too cheesy. But they flash on him when she goes to dance with Ben Foster, and he just kind of smiles and shakes his head and he's like, I love this job, or something, and it's like that's a little corny. I'm glad they edited that out.
We got the message. Yeah.
But there is a good deleted scene where the bully actually does bring the Twinkie back to the table.
Oh, he does give him the Twinkie?
Smashes it
again.
He
smashes it?
Yes.
You should buy him dessert.
So that was a funny... There's like 4 deleted scenes on the DVD that are all like a minute or two.
Alright, there was one other thought I did have, and I want you to... let me know if you think this is correct. I did feel like, when I watched the pilot and I was done with it, I'm like, I feel like I've got a good sense of what the show is from one episode. Like, am I wrong?
No, this is why
it's
a near perfect pilot.
Okay.
Because what they do here is set the stage immediately in the first scene for every single character.
Okay.
It starts out with that couple kissing on the football player kissing on the bleachers.
Yeah.
And so
it scares me.
Right, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be like Dawson's Creek 2.0 or whatever. Yeah. And then they pan down to the druggies, the freaks smoking and listening to Van Halen and all that.
Yeah.
And then right around the corner, the geeks come, they're doing their Caddyshack bits, and then the bully, and then Lindsay comes in to fight the bully for Sam. And then even in the end of that scene, the little button on the scene where he's like, I could have taken care of that myself.
I know.
Yeah, she's like, I know. Like, it tells you their dynamic immediately. Like, that first scene alone sets the stage for the entire series.
Okay.
Perfectly so.
Because I honestly felt like if I only watch this episode, I have this feeling I've got a pretty good sense of what Freaks and Geeks is like.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And unlike a lot of pilots, we're not like necessarily meeting people.
No.
Like some of the great pilots you think of, it's a lot of like, oh, this person moved into town, or this person's doing this, or here's the backstory. We don't get any of that because I feel like
too many characters.
Well, I feel like Feig and Apatow knew that we all knew these people.
It's dialogue. You get a sense of who they are through what they're going through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yes, you are completely correct in that assessment.
Thought so.
And that's one of the many great things about that pilot.
That's effective then. No, I mean, really, other than just the fact that I was a little surprised that the freaks weren't as focused on, and the dodgeball scene being a little out of it for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was a really good pilot.
Okay. Now you must grade it.
Oh no.
The grading will commence.
I have to give grades
on the episodes. Yes, just like we did for The Sopranos.
Okay. Well, I don't have any real problem with it. I thought it was pretty good. I'd give it an A.
All right. Yeah. I mean, other than the dodgeball scene being a bit broad, it's an A+. I mean, it is literally in the top 3 or top 5 great pilots of all time. I mean, this should be the template. Because it introduces, everything we just said. I mean, everything is introduced perfectly, even just in that first scene. And how good are these actors?
They're all really. There was not a bad actor.
We already knew Seth Rogen. We knew Franco. We knew Siegel. Cardellini a little bit from her Marvel stint for you.
Most of the other kids.
But the little kids.
They're really good.
Are so great in this show, especially Martin Starr, who plays the guy, the tall, lanky one from
I like him a lot.
Spider-Man. You know him from Spider-Man.
I know. It's weird though because
Yeah.
I didn't make that connection, but no, I do like him.
Yeah,
I really do.
He shows up every once in a while. Did you ever see the movie Adventureland at the amusement park with Ryan Reynolds?
I actually never did see Adventureland.
It's pretty good, but he's in that too. He plays one of the carnies. I mean, all 3 of them together.
It's a great trio.
It always reminds me of the great, Spielberg movies of the 80s, where you just get a group of unknown kids that are just, you believe that they've known each other forever.
Yeah, I honestly, that's another thing I was thinking about. Honestly, I found those 3 so compelling. I thought the show could have just been about them.
Yeah.
And it would have been enough. But
I think that's why they chose to focus more on them in the pilot, to make it a little more palatable for people.
You think?
And then, I think so. And then once the audience started coming in,
kids might.
Then you bring Lindsay more over to the freak side.
Where they do more riskier things.
Yeah.
So you get more audience hooked immediately.
Yes.
I got a little more wholesome. Okay, that might be smarter. But you're right. That 80s, the Stand By Me stuff.
Yeah, Stand By Me, Goonies. And we've seen it recently too.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
It's getting some inspiration too.
Definitely had that vibe too.
Super 8.
Super 8, I always go back to Super 8 too, yeah.
It's a good movie. It reminded me a lot of that vibe for those kids, that 80s, every kid sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely. No, it was very good. I really enjoyed it. I think it was very solid. I didn't really have any major issues. Yeah. That was a good pilot.
Okay.
I really did.
Well, there you go, folks. There you have it. Another convert to Freaks and Geeks.
I really, the weird thing is I literally knew nothing about it.
Yeah, you really didn't.
Nothing.
You knew that it took place in high school, I think, right?
I knew it was in high school. I knew that some of the
Did you know it was in the 80s?
No. I thought it was the 90s, actually.
Okay.
I didn't know when it took place.
Fair enough. You knew it was Apatow.
I knew it was about a bunch of kids. Apatow people was behind it.
Apatow gang.
Any specifics? No. That's about the extent of my knowledge.
Right. Well, and that's, me, I don't even watch trailers. That's how I like to bring it to people. I don't give them too much information. I give them the discs. I say, look, just watch it. You're going to like it, whatever. And what's funny is when I started giving this to people, I think a lot of the Apatow people weren't even famous yet.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, maybe How I Met Your Mother was on season 1. Maybe Knocked Up had come out. But we're talking 2020 now. How can you not know who James Franco is?
Yeah,
or Seth Rogen. But
that's interesting.
But yeah, so all right. Well, so we're going to do a review for each of these episodes. I can't wait to watch them again. I'm going to watch them in glorious widescreen for the first time ever.
Nice.
The way that it was filmed. And yeah, we'll sprinkle in a lot of the little factoids along the way about a bunch of these extras that are on the disc. And I'm excited for your take. I know how you felt now when you introduced me to The Sopranos. Every week just wondering what's Dan going to think about these 5 episodes?
Is he going to love him? Is he going to hate him? Because that's always the interesting thing. Introducing somebody is there's that bit of excitement of I don't know how he's. Do you think that am I ever going to be disappointed or angry in an episode? I'm sure every show.
Well, I'll be honest. I think the Ben Stiller episode is very gimmicky. It's my least favorite episode.
Oh, okay.
It's very gimmicky.
Okay.
But they were trying to save the show, so it's like.
Well, I don't want you to spoil anything, but
Yeah.
but like, is this one of those deals where there's kind of a conclusion, or am I going to be left hanging forever? Because I hate that.
Well, okay. There's good and bad news about that. I know
Okay.
you hate that. Obviously, they were hoping for many seasons.
Okay.
They didn't get that.
No. I always
But
does the story arc kind of wrap up for her or something?
yes, but
Uh-oh.
there's many things that are sort of left open-ended. But
Okay.
it's either Apatow or Feig. I think it's Paul Feig. Went on the record a couple years after the finale and said, "Here's where I would have taken the story in season 2."
Well, if they have one of
Which
the
I always like.
after like credits, freeze frame,
Yes.
they did this.
They can, yes.
Okay.
So at least you get sort of a sense of where they might have been
Okay.
thinking.
So you
for
can
these
say
characters.
canon. This is what happened.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's
so
something. Okay.
yeah. So it'll be something. I don't think you'll be disappointed. But it's funny when I told one of my dear friends, Maggie. We just obsessed over this show for years.
Uh-huh.
She was one of the people I introduced to it, and when I told her we were doing this, even now she's just like, "Oh, I hate that it just ended and they didn't get a season 2." I'm like, I know, but
because like that's one of the things
what are you
for
gonna
me
do?
is weird. As like I know you've recommended some shows to me, and I mean you like watch a lot of TV. You try to watch a lot of shows, and you want to see what you can, but I hate it when a show is canceled and there's never a conclusion. That feels like I can never completely judge the show.
Yeah, I understand that, but to be fair, I think a lot of the shows in that vein that you watch are more on the mystery, sci-fi type element.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think this concludes the way a movie might conclude.
Okay.
Because basically it goes through the whole year of school.
Okay,
so
school year.
it ends basically in May of the school year.
Okay.
So if you look at
stuff
if you look at it that way, it's like, okay, if this were a movie, this would be a perfectly fine ending.
Okay, gotcha.
You know.
But you wish that there could have been more stuff.
Of course, I wish it ran for 4 or 5 seasons, maybe until the freshman kids are out of high school. 4 years maybe would have been nice for this show.
That would have been cool.
But anyway, we didn't get that. Instead, we got Knocked Up, which was also very good.
There you go.
So there you go. All right. So thanks so much for watching. We will see you next time on Freaks and Geeks Friday. Thank you, Joe, for joining.
Welcome.
We'll see you next time.